Today, we're going to talk about the one thing. So, this is a concept. I think I first ran across this concept in a movie with Billy Crystal back in the 90s called City Slickers. There's a scene in the movie where Billy Crystal plays a New Yorker at a dude ranch, and he's on the trail riding a horse with the old cowboy, the gruff, rough, tough old cowboy. And they're having kind of a conversation about life. And the cowboy tells him that you want to know the secret to life. And Billy's like, well, sure, of course, kind of taken aback, but going with it. And the cowboy says, this is the secret to life. And Billy makes some funny comment about his finger or whatever. He's like, one thing. Cowboy's like, one thing. That's the secret. Just have to have one thing. And Billy's like, what's the one thing? And the cowboy's like, that's what you have to figure out. Okay. So that's the kind of concept of a one big thing. What's your one big thing? What are you really focusing on? What do you care about? What are you driving towards? So let's go around the room and like to hear about everybody's what's your one thing? Great. I love hearing about all those very interesting one things. Next, let's talk about, well, the book talks about, oh, we've got to show you the book, make sure everybody's seen the book. The one thing, Gary Keller. And so in the book, they talk about going from your one big thing down to your one thing now. What are you going to focus on right now? And so, have you been able to do that? Let's talk about that. That's not a simple thing. How's everybody been? How successful have you been in getting down to that one thing? How did you, we've talked about, have you been able to do it, get down to your one thing and some challenges there? How did you do it? Did you use the way the book talks about is two different ways. One is the 80-20 rule. You say 80% of results are produced by 20% of activities. So focus on those 20% of activities. And the book then suggests you iterate that, you repeat and say, okay, out of those 20%, which 20% of those are producing 80% results, and so on until you get down to one thing you should be focusing on now. Another way to do it is on a goal basis and say, okay, we've got our one thing, big goal, and but that's down the road. And so what do we do, where do we need to be in 5 years to be set to achieve that big thing? Where do we need to be in 1 year or 3 years to be ready to achieve our 5 year milestones? What do we need to be? Where do we need to be this quarter in order to be ready to achieve our 1 year goals? Where do we need to be this week, this day, right now? So you just kind of cascade down. So two different approaches. Are either of those successful? And is it helping you to focus? Let's go on. And we've heard from everybody on getting focus. Now, what is the impact of that? The book suggests compounding returns, and I've seen that. That's something that I've seen, but I'd like to see, how much of that other people have seen. When you get down and really focus, and not just your big one thing, but also the one thing now, Do you see that you're more effective? You're able to build on your successes? You're less distracted? Let's talk about that. One of the things we keep coming back to is, setting those priorities and the trade-off of setting, I've got a lot going on. And so brings up some interesting questions. Are certain things really more important? Do I really have to keep all those balls juggling? Do I have to, while I'm juggling, do I have to keep them all up in the air? Or is it okay to let some of them drop so that someone else can pick up those balls? So that's about how to set those priorities and how to let others take over some of those pieces. This is going to cause chaos. And, if you're not going to do something, it's not the important thing, but it's still something you need, that needs to get done. Is someone else going to pick up the ball? Is it going to be okay to do it later? What's the impact of that delay on that secondary issue? How do you work that out? How do you resolve that conflict? Let's talk about that.